Hello and welcome. Thanks for stopping by Garden Hike. I'm Kevin. We're going to take a look at repotting a large jade plant that we've got here. I've had it for over 5 years now, but this was a gift. So I'm suspecting this is at least 20 years old, possibly. Take a look at the photo we've got here when we first received the plant. You're going to notice it's a little bit more upright back then, and I think that was likely due to it having more sunlight. On our plant, our stems, I think, are drooping just a little bit more, and that's a sign of a lower light condition. So even though we've got this in a really sunny south-facing location, our windows are tinted, and that actually is reducing the amount of light that it's getting. We've decided to go ahead and put this in a bigger pot just because it's become so top heavy. It actually fell over and hit the floor one time. What happens is as it leans towards the sun, if you don't rotate it frequently, that water in those succulent leaves becomes very heavy. Before we take our plant down to the work area, I actually wanted to go ahead and we're going to weigh this plant. We're going to put it on a scale. Let's see if we can get this thing picked up. Oh my goodness. Yeah, look at that, pushing right around 23 to 24 pounds on this thing. As we go through the process, we're also going to talk about some of the characteristics and needs of the jade when you're using it as a houseplant. These jades, they've got a fragile stem too, so by the time we're done with this repotting, we're going to have some of these that we're going to be able to use to propagate and start new little plants. Yeah, about 25 pounds on this thing. We'll go ahead and get it propped up next to its new home, and we'll get at mixing up the type of soil that we're going to use up. There we go. You're going to find there's a lot of different soil mixes you can use for different houseplants. Now, when we're dealing with the jade and the succulent plants, you do want to make sure you have good drainage. I'm going to use an all-purpose sphagnum potting mix for the base. That's going to be about 50% of it, and that's got some vermiculite and perlite in it already. I also like to mix in what's called a sedge peat. Now, this is a little bit better peat for holding nutrients and the exchange of nutrients between the plant, the water, etc. And then perlite. That's going to be one of the most important parts of this mix, that perlite. That's going to create that airspace and allow the soil to dry out in between waterings. You can also use sand or kind of just a small chipped granite if you like for that aeration. So there's different soil mixes you could use for sure. Jade plant's also called friendship plant, silver dollar plant. I always like to mention the Latin name, Crassula ovata. Now, Crassula stands for a thick, fat stem, and ovata stands for an egg-shaped leaf. Now, normally when you're going to upgrade a houseplant, you don't want to go more than an inch or two wider on each side. It can be very difficult to control how much moisture is in that new soil. This might be just a little bit bigger than I wanted to go, but it's a good clay decorative pot, 12 inches. I've also got, nice sturdy base now. We're going to go ahead and also measure how deep this is so we have a good idea how much soil we want to put on the bottom. We're going to tamp that down pretty good to make sure we don't get too much settling as well. So we've got about 9 inches, and our old pot here about 8 inches, so we don't have to put all that much soil on the bottom. We're getting ready to wrestle that jade out of its old pot. We've got our soil base there. The moment of truth is upon us. I hope it pops off easy. Boy, there is just no easy way to do this, let me tell you. Okay, so now maybe, even though that's been in there, I'm betting 15 years or plus, it's not a tremendous amount of root-bound activity going on there. I'm a little bit surprised. We'll see if I've got the right amount of soil. This is going to be a little bit of a slow and tedious part, trying to get that soil in there. We'll work our way around the pot, take our time. We'll tamp it in as we go. I did want to mention too that one of the reasons that the jade is such a great houseplant is it just grows well in restricted root space areas. It's slow growing, likes the warm, dry conditions found in most homes, and it'll tolerate that neglect. And when we say neglect, we're talking about, oftentimes we forget the watering part of it. The jade plants are going to do best with about 4 or more hours of direct sun, but they'll survive in a bright indirect light area also. You can also take the jade plants outside during the summer, but boy, just be really careful that you don't put it immediately in the direct sun. They have to be acclimated to it, just like our skin. We can get a sunburn. The jade plants can also get a tight, rounded cluster of small white or pink flowers, little star-shaped flower. To encourage bloom when the fall, you need to reduce that temperature down to around 55 degrees. And then you want to have uninterrupted dark. You're kind of going to fake the plant into having longer nights than you're actually getting it. Okay, I think we're pretty close there. What's going to happen at this point with our jade, we got the soil tamped in there as much as we could, but after the first 2 or 3 waterings, we're going to get a little bit of a settling effect. At that time, we'll go ahead and we'll add just a little bit more soil to it so we don't have those air pockets in there. You'll notice too, as we worked, we knocked some of the different little stems off. The jade plant can be propagated quite easily. Once they fall off, let that callus for a day or two, a little bit dry up. You can go ahead and you can put this jade plant in soil, and that adventitious root on the stem, it'll root in. They can do that easily. Something else I've tried, if you look back at that photo when we first started the video, you'll notice at the bottom of the table there, we had some clay pots. And what I did was I actually did a technique called layering, and I left the stem on the plant, and I just buried those adventitious roots into the soil with the tips out. That way you've got almost 100% success rate where that jade's going to root in because it's still connected to the mother plant. Once you've gone about 3 weeks and you've got some roots that have developed, you can go ahead and sever that stem and let your new plant grow out. It was heavy. That's about as much yoga as you're going to get out of me. Thanks again for watching Garden Hike. We'll see you again next video.